here we go again. With the two guys on the upper bunk rolling around, the well-worn wooden bed in the dormitory let out a creaking sound as if it couldn't bear the weight. The constant shaking made it impossible for me to fall asleep. But I grabbed my phone. I angrily sent a message. Damn gays, are they ever going to let me sleep? A soft sound came from the next bed. Soon, James' message popped up. Oh right, how about Oliver comes to sleep with me? That's exactly what I was waiting for. Satisfied, I got up, put on my slippers, and climbed into his bed. The dormitory visibly quieted down. After a while, the rustling sound started again. James' bedding smelled nice, and the mattress was soft. I let out a sigh of comfort and turned to face James. I murmured in a low voice, "Those damned gays, do they think we're dead?" James' eyes were bright in the dark, really good looking. His gaze seemed to land on the lower half of my face, and his Adam's apple moved slightly, almost imperceptibly. By the light from outside the window, I could see his ears were a bit red. It's the middle of summer in an air-conditioned room. Why is he blushing? Hey, you're not having another one of your episodes, are you? James nodded obediently. Yeah, Oliver, can I keep sleeping with you in my arms tonight? The young man's voice was warm and polite, with a slight lilt that sent a tingle down half of my body. He's being all cute and clingy again. I was so exasperated that I sat up, took off my pajamas, and then got back under the covers. Sure, come here for a hug. His fluffy head nestled into my arms, carrying the scent of shampoo. He's almost 6 feet tall, but he's huddling in my arms like a clingy kitten. His body is burning up, and he looks so pitiful. I couldn't help but feel sorry for him and said, "This illness really takes a toll on you, huh?" James's voice was tense and hoarse, as if he was trying his best to hold back something. Poor guy, patted his back. Go to sleep, go to sleep. My two roommates were gay. I knew that from the first day of school. When I pushed open the dormitory door, carrying big bags and wearing a big smile, ready to say hello, the two of them were locked in a passionate kiss by the desk, completely oblivious to the world around them. Holy crap, they're gay. I instinctively slammed the door shut and double-checked the room number. I'm not in the wrong place. I tentatively opened the door again. One of the guys pushed the other away, looking embarrassed, and gave a shy smile. Hi, I'm Henry. The other tall guy lifted his eyelids impatiently. Matthew. That night, I called my childhood friend, feeling utterly hopeless. Damn it, there are two of them, and they're both gay. My childhood friend slapped the table and burst out laughing. William, I told you not to go study in Wuchuan. You even called me narrow-minded. How does it feel to have that come back to bite you? So, when James finally showed up late the next day and walked into the dorm, I almost felt like crying tears of gratitude. Look at that one. 9-meter height. Look at those distinct and outstanding facial features. Look at that reserved and cultivated manner. He's definitely a real man. I immediately decided unilaterally to be sworn brothers with him. James is great in every way. He lets me copy his homework. He brings me dinner. He runs the campus jog for me. He even helps me with the military theory course online. But it seems he has some kind of strange illness. One day, I just came out of the gym, humming a tune on my way back to the dorm. But then I saw James hugging a huge blue shark plushie, and he seemed almost buried in its white belly. Hearing the sound, he looked up blankly, his black tousled hair all messed up. His usually cool and composed face had a faint blush on it. I stammered for a moment. James threw the shark onto the bed, and finally I came up with a topic. Air, haha, isn't it crowded to sleep with such a big doll on the bed? He looked up at me, his beautiful eyes blinking, a faint smile curving his lips. Not really. He paused, pondered for a while, and then confessed. Have you ever heard of skin hunger? What's that? It's a condition that makes people want to touch soft and warm things. If they don't get satisfied, they might have a skin stress reaction. You've got that. I said bluntly. Yes, James admitted. That's something new. I've never heard of it before, but compared to the other two roommates, this is still within the acceptable range. For some reason, I suddenly thought of the chest muscles I just worked on in the afternoon. My childhood friend isn't here, and I haven't shown off my muscles to anyone for a long time. So, do you like touching things that are warm and elastic? I grinned and moved closer. Ha! The sudden change of topic made James look puzzled, but he still nodded shyly and honestly. Yes. I grabbed his hand and placed it on my chest muscle, then grinned and said, "Give it a poke. Isn't it soft?" James' face flushed instantly, and he said hesitantly, "I don't think this is appropriate. It is quite soft. Doesn't it feel better than a stuffed doll?" Yeah. This time he sounded more determined. I flexed, and my muscle twitched. Boing! His slender fingers were suddenly bounced off, and James was left stunned. After a moment, he looked at me with a complex expression as I was laughing heartily. "Oliver, you've really got some good muscles. Man, you're blown away by my pecs, right?" When it comes to working on pecs, I was in a great mood, so I walked over to change clothes and even flexed my muscles a couple of times. "James, if you want to work out, I can show you the ropes." James seemed to want to say something but held back, and finally let out a sigh. "Thanks, Oliver." To be honest, I didn't believe a word about James' so-called illness, but I was considerate enough not to expose him. After all, it's normal for a grown man to have some little secret quirks. Liking plush toys isn't a hobby that deserves a death sentence. I played dress-up games too. It wasn't until one night that I realized what he said might be true. In the middle of that night, I was half asleep when I suddenly heard the upper bunk creaking. I opened my eyes and saw that the lower bunk next door was empty. It's not hard to guess who made that sound. With a poker face, I stared upwards, trying to kill those two lovebirds with my eyes. Dormitory relationships are hard to handle. It's only the first year. If I offend them, what if they use my toothbrush to clean their shoes or put something in my water? I covered my head with a pillow to block out the noise, but I still couldn't fall asleep until 2 a.m. The two on the upper bunk seemed to have fallen asleep, and there were only occasional sounds of them turning over. But I was so worked up that I even started counting dumplings. When I counted to 10,000 dumplings, I heard a faint sigh coming from the next bed. We're both in the same boat. I perked up and whispered loudly, "James? James? You still awake?" There was no response. "Let me check what's going on." I leaned over and found James curled up, clutching the blanket with a frown. Taking a closer look, there were fine red rashes on his fair arms, as if he'd been bitten by bugs. "What's wrong with you?" I poked his forehead. James slowly opened his eyes, his pupils unfocused. It took him a while to come to his senses, and he said softly, "Oliver, what's going on with your body?" "Sharky washed," he gasped and said in a low voice. I instinctively looked towards the balcony. The huge blue shark was drying there all alone. Without Sharky to hug, he broke out in a rash all over. So when he said he was starved for that, he really meant it. Can holding something relieve it? Yeah. I looked at my constantly shaking bed, then at James, who was too tormented to sleep, and an idea popped into my head. "James, want me to sleep with you?" "Huh?" James's pupils slowly dilated, as if he couldn't believe it. "Is that a good idea? Won't it be a bit crowded with the two of us? So consider it. I can't sleep, and you need something to hold. It's a win-win." Seeing he was still hesitating, I quickly climbed onto his bed and got under the covers. "It's okay. If I hold you, it won't be crowded. I shower and wash my hair every day. If you don't believe me, smell. I smell great." Obviously, James's body tensed up. "You can't do this." I saw the blush spreading up to his face, and I pulled him into my arms. "Don't be shy. If you want a hug, just say so." The body in my arms gradually relaxed. In the darkness, James' lips twitched slightly, and his eyes were as dark as ink. I watched as the red rashes on his body slowly faded away and couldn't help but exclaim, "That's amazing! Oliver still itches like crazy." James let out a soft whine, his voice trailing up at the end as he clung to me, practically pouting. "So what should we do?" James felt a bit embarrassed and lowered his eyes slightly. "Could we have direct contact?" I realized what he meant and readily took off my shirt. "No big deal. Oliver, you're so generous." James reached out and cautiously wrapped his arms around my waist, approaching me carefully. "Stop being so hesitant." I directly pulled him into my arms and gave him a tight hug. "Stop fidgeting." He finally settled down, his tone excited and his eyes bright. "Bro, it's so strange. This is the first time I've been this close to someone. It's just two guys sleeping together. Didn't we always sleep with our buddies when we were kids?" "Well, I'm okay. I've slept with a lot of people." I blurted out. "Oh." James let his voice trail off, sounding a bit unhappy. "What's up?" "I'm sleepy. Gonna go to bed." Are you saying that, to resist your gay roommate's advances, you went and slept with another male roommate? My childhood friend exclaimed. So what? His bed was pretty comfortable to sleep in. I took a bite of the breakfast James bought me, feeling quite pleased. He even brings you food? And copies homework for you. So what? I said indifferently. I even let him touch me. William, do you even hear what you're saying? My childhood friend sneered. I told you not to study in Wuchuan. Now look, you've really turned gay. You think I'm gay? I raised my voice, shocked. Well, Zhang Fei would never act like this towards Guan Yu. Anyway, we just don't see eye to eye. I snorted. Just think, if I asked you to kiss Gu Rang right now, would you be disgusted? I really couldn't imagine it. I'd only know after trying. William, you're done for. My childhood friend said mournfully. You actually want to kiss a man? That's so random. I paced back and forth in front of the mirror, unable to associate myself, a 1.8-meter, tall tough guy from the north, with being gay. This must be an illusion. There can't be an entire dorm full of gays. Can there? I've never heard that homosexuality is contagious, either. I really need to get a girlfriend. Coincidentally, there's a mixer event in the university town. After getting the email notice, I filled out the registration questionnaire as stealthily as a thief. Once I find a girlfriend, I'll totally blind everyone in the dorm. I'll just quietly amaze them all. That night, I was picking out clothes for the weekend mixer when I suddenly heard Henry exclaim. He looked around and asked in a low voice, William, you're going to the mixer. How do you know? I stared at him. I'm from the student union's external liaison department. I was just sorting out the list. Henry paused for a few seconds. William, even if you had a fight with James, you shouldn't do this. This is so random. What does James have to do with this? I didn't have a fight with him. We're on good terms. Then, is he going? No, he isn't. I said matter-of-factly. If he goes, how can I find a girlfriend? Wouldn't everyone go for him? Well, you guys are quite open-minded then. Henry forced a smile. You guys are the ones who are open-minded. Turning the dorm into a hotel. I snorted softly, muttering to myself. Who said I'm not going? A cold voice sounded. James walked out of the bathroom, drying his hair. His face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost, and his dark eyes fixed on me. You're kidding, right? James, you don't need to rely on a mixer to find a girlfriend. Give your bro a chance here, I said with a woebegone look, nudging him gently with my shoulder a couple of times. Girlfriend? He furrowed his brows and said. Before I could answer, James just went on speaking on his own. Oliver, I'll go with you. Ha! I looked troubled. James let out a soft laugh with an unreadable expression. I can get you the contact information then. Really? Thanks, bro. I beamed with joy, not noticing James' livid face. At night, I climbed onto his bed with ease. There, the blue shark was lying stiffly, taking up the spot where I usually slept. Its mouthful of sharp teeth seemed to be challenging me. James, I've got no place to sleep. I nudged his calf. Sharky's drying, James said in an extremely indifferent tone. And then, I can hug it. Don't bother Oliver. Didn't he say I was more comfortable? Did he get tired of me so soon? Fine, I said, looking all pitiful, and went back to my shabby little bed. Participating in the mixer with James, I kind of experienced the feeling of being in the spotlight. Girls kept covering their mouths and giggling as they looked our way, but they just stared and no one came to say hi. I sat down at the bar, feeling frustrated. Luckily, the budget for this mixer must be pretty high because the bread was delicious. Suddenly, a female voice came from the side. Hi, are you James? I looked over and saw two pretty girls. Their faces were a bit red and they stole glances at me from time to time. Do I have something on my face? I instinctively touched my face. Then this must be William, the junior from dorm 404. When the topic turned to me, I was flattered. Hi. You actually know me? Of course. After all, you're the new heartthrob. The other senior girl had a strange smile on her face. Heartthrob? They're complimenting me. I grinned and winked at James. He just gave me a cold look. Junior, would you like to exchange contact info? We can add you to a group. For some reason, more and more girls were gathering around. They seemed quite interested in fitness and the boys' dorm. Henry rushed over, looking anxious. William, go check on James right away. What's wrong with him? I just noticed that James had disappeared in the blink of an eye. He seems to be having an allergic reaction. Anyway, come with me. Allergic reaction? Did he have another episode? I instantly lost interest in socializing and apologized to them. Sorry, my roommate has something urgent. Everyone was very understanding. It's okay. Don't worry about us. Go see your roommate quickly. Henry led me to the lounge and then left. The lights were dim. On the long sofa, James had his eyes closed and his brows furrowed tightly. Looking closely, the red rash was spreading rapidly on the parts not covered by his white shirt. Hearing the sound, he lifted his eyelids and looked at me. Isn't Oliver going to make friends? Make friends? No way. I squatted down in front of him and gently blew on the rash on his wrist. How did you suddenly have an episode? Maybe it's because I drank some alcohol. James looked a bit annoyed. I thought it was juice and didn't pay attention when I drank it. You're unbelievable, kid. A strange sense of urgency and worry welled up in my heart. Come on, make some room. Let me give you a hug. James stared at me intently for a good while before he shifted a little bit. I took the chance and sat down, putting my arms around him. It was dead quiet in the room. Only the sound of our breathing could be heard. The heat from his skin seeped through the fabric and continuously reached my senses as time ticked by slowly. The atmosphere was sticky and strange. I tried to make small talk. James, you feeling any better? There was no response. I looked over and James seemed to be asleep. His eyes were tightly shut, his long eyelashes casting shadows on his face, and his lips were unusually rosy. James is really good looking. No wonder so many people like him. It was getting a bit hot. I swallowed hard, my Adam's apple bobbing. Suddenly, I thought of what my childhood friend had said. My gaze slowly landed on James's lips. Why not give it a try and find out? Like I was possessed. I slowly moved closer and gave his lips a little nibble. They were indeed as soft as I'd imagined, with a faint sweet taste of fruit wine. Not gonna lie, it was quite nice. I smacked my lips, but didn't taste anything else. Oliver, what are you doing? I jerked my head up and saw James half lying, squinting at me. For no reason, I felt a pang of guilt. I avoided James's eyes and laughed awkwardly. I just noticed your rash hasn't gone away. I was wondering if a kiss would help. Oh, so how does it feel? Seems to be working. Ha ha ha. Under his intense, almost palpable gaze, I gradually fell silent. After a while, James returned to his usual gentle self and said, "Got it. Just a straight guy's little trick." Seeing no strange look on his face, I relaxed and said, "Yeah, we're both guys. What's the big deal about a little kiss? We know the drill." It was already 11 p.m., and the rash on James had almost disappeared. I stood up and said, "James, let's go back to the dorm, shall we?" "Sure." On the way back, I finally picked up my phone that I had ignored all night and approved the friend requests one by one. The girls I just added quickly sent me a group invitation. I accepted the invitation. "Welcome. Hi, William. Have you gone back with your roommate?" They all seemed to be friendly senior girls. Their compliments made me feel on top of the world. Everyone was joking around and having a good chat. Suddenly, someone grabbed my wrist. "Watch out," they said. Right in front of me was a gray utility pole. I'd almost run into it just now. I patted my chest and let out a long sigh. "Good thing you're here," I said. James didn't show any agreement or disagreement. "Who were you chatting with?" he asked. "The senior girls I added tonight," I replied, turning to look at him. "They're all pretty interesting. I didn't expect I'd be this popular." James fell silent again. He'd been especially quiet tonight. After I finished washing up, I glanced over at James' bed. Shasha was lying there peacefully, blocking most of my view. James was lying there quietly, not even hugging the shark. It seemed like he wasn't gonna let me on the bed again. I went back to my own bed, feeling a bit disappointed. My phone vibrated. Henry had sent me a message. "William, Matthew and I won't be coming back tonight. Have a nice evening." What did that mean? I was completely confused. I felt a bit melancholy inside, not sure why. I hugged myself and went to sleep all alone. James was ignoring me. Usually, I'm pretty thick-skinned and wouldn't have noticed. It wasn't until one morning when I had an 8 a.m. class and my stomach started growling that I realized James hadn't brought me breakfast for days. Since we were in different majors, it was already hard for us to hang out together. After he started ignoring me, it became even rarer to run into him. I didn't do anything wrong. Why is he suddenly avoiding me? I asked the seniors in the group for advice. How do you deal with dormitory relationships? My roommate suddenly got mad at me. That one question got a lot of lurkers in the group to speak up. What happened? Maybe you should apologize first. What's going on? I continued asking. Before, he always asked me to sleep with him and even brought me food. But recently, he suddenly changed. Think about it. Did you say something to make him angry? I quickly explained. No, he just stopped talking to me after that last mixer. Now I haven't found a girlfriend, and I've lost a friend too. What a jerk, I asked, looking completely bewildered. What on earth are you guys talking in riddles about? There's no hope for you, Junior. Figure it out on your own. There were a bunch of messages flooding the screen, but no one answered my question. And I've even been labeled as a scumbag guy. I was going to ask Henry, but he's gay. His way of getting along with guys is probably different from mine, so I gave up the idea. Just like that, a few weeks passed uneventfully. Then suddenly, a photo was posted in the group. I clicked on it and my eyes just froze. It was a photo of the school gym. I go there every week, so I'm really familiar with it. The point was that in the center of the picture were James and another guy. The guy had his hand on James' shoulder and was leaning in, smiling and saying something. In the photo, the guy was wearing tight, quick-dry clothes that outlined some of his overly developed muscles. I have to admit, he was really well built. Before, when I asked James to work out with me, he didn't even pay me any attention. Now he's so happy with someone else. He hasn't asked for my hugs for a long time. That guy looks like he'd feel great to the touch, especially a certain part. It's like a tower rising from flat ground. Is he ignoring me just because he found a new pillow to cuddle with? My heart sank, and I felt a twinge of jealousy. He's from the electrical engineering department. Rumor has it, he's gay. Is that guy gay? My eyes uncontrollably landed on that annoying hand. Well, this could count as harassment, right? Why is he getting so close? The photo was posted just a few minutes ago. I quickly put on my slippers and stormed towards the gym. Beside the Smith machine, James was playing with a straight bar, chatting merrily with the muscle-bound guy across from him. The muscular guy even gave James's bicep a couple of squeezes. I felt a rush of anger and unceremoniously swatted his hand away. What the hell are you doing? I snapped, stepping in front of James. Keep your hands to yourself. The muscular guy gave a strange look, signaled to James, and walked off. William, James said calmly, what are you doing here? I felt a bit guilty under his cold gaze and replied stiffly, James, how's that hunger and thirst thing going lately? You want me to stick around with you? I'm fine for now. Then why'd you suddenly come to the gym and let this sketchy guy get close to you? I shot a fierce glare at the muscular guy. He's the trainer I hired, and he's got a proper license. James said, I can teach you if you want to correct your form, and I won't charge you. I said, my bravado deflating a bit. Oliver, why did you come over? Oliver, why are you over here? James lifted the corners of his lips slightly, his tone a bit softer, but his gaze intense. Not understanding, I said indignantly, he touched you. Do you know he's gay? Their circle is so messed up. Don't hang out with him. After just a few words, James's face visibly darkened. He stared at me coldly and suddenly said, William, I'm gay too. I didn't tell you before because I thought you were a bit too homophobic. Men should keep a proper distance from each other. Let's not do that anymore. What do you mean not do that? Hugging? James is gay too. Thinking about how I just cursed gays in front of him, I finally understood why he was mad at me. Suddenly, I felt a bit breathless. James, I don't discriminate against gay people. I really don't. Like, I think you're pretty nice. Oh, he was expressionless. Wait a minute. Then isn't he even less suitable to get close to that guy? Could James really be interested in him? For no reason, I felt really annoyed. James, how did he feel, physically? The topic was so abrupt that James was stunned for a moment. After realizing what I meant, he was so angry that he laughed instead. William, "You're really something." After saying that, he just strode away, completely ignoring me following behind him. The door was slammed shut, and I was left out in the cold. I squatted down in front of the dormitory door, completely puzzled. Why is James even angrier? My childhood friend came to Wuchuan and specifically asked me to show him around. I went listlessly. After a few drinks, I was crying so hard that I started hiccuping. My childhood friend, embarrassed, quickly put on his hat. "William, what's wrong with you? My roommate is ignoring me," I sobbed, pouring out my recent troubles to him in fits and starts. "You kissed a gay guy?" My childhood friend's voice shot up, his face registering shock. Instantly, everyone at the late-night food stall turned to look at us. I quietly put on my hat and covered my face. He even got a big-chested guy as a coach. Wah! We've been friends for months, but his feelings for me are no match for that guy's assets. James just thinks he's bigger than me. It's all just an excuse. Hick. I rambled on incoherently, then downed another bottle of draft beer. My childhood friend patted me on the shoulder. "William, that's not cool. You've been bad-mouthing his kind all along. Then you go and sleep in his bed and kiss him. What's that all about? If your roommate is gay, kind of makes sense. You're leading him on while relying on your straight status. If I were him, I'd stay a mile away from you." I cried even more earnestly. "Hey, think about it. You're scared of gay people, right? Now that he's staying away from you, isn't that a good thing?" "No way," I said, sticking out my neck. My childhood friend's face showed a mix of expressions. After a long while, he said, "William, don't you think you seem like someone who's just had their heart broken right now? You don't have a crush on your roommate, do you?" "A crush? No way," I retorted instinctively. "Come here." My childhood friend crooked his finger. I was confused, but leaned closer to him. My childhood friend suddenly leaned in and kissed me. I felt a bit nauseous instinctively and quickly stepped back about a meter. "What the hell are you doing?" "See?" My childhood friend said triumphantly. "You can't even kiss another guy. It's because your mouth is too dirty. Look at the greasy mess. Who in their right mind would dare to kiss you?" I said in disgust. "Fine, you win." My childhood friend gave me a thumbs up. Turning around, I saw James behind me with an unreadable expression. On that hot summer night, all that was left was the chirping of insects, and my body was heaving. I must have drunk too much. My consciousness was like being on a roller coaster. It seemed like I was on someone's back. Passing by the mall, a gust of air-conditioned wind blew, and I woke up groggily. Looking up, I saw James' beautiful profile, as if in a dream. "James, what are you doing here?" "What, not happy to see me?" James said coldly. I groggily nestled against his nape and took a breath. "Our body wash is the same, but it smells especially good on him. I wonder who it was that was just hugging and kissing a friend over there. You straight guys really have a sense of boundaries," James said through gritted teeth, emphasizing the words straight guy with a hint of sarcasm. I didn't kiss. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Even though my head was woozy, I subconsciously frowned. James didn't say anything. He seemed not to believe me. I leaned forward and started struggling on his back. "If you don't believe me, let's kiss right now." "No, why are you so cold?" I felt a bit wronged and propped myself up on his shoulders, leaning out most of my body. "Come on, just one kiss." Maybe my movements were too big. James gasped and slapped me on the back. "Stay still. Why is he so strong?" My self-preservation instinct made me quiet down, and I stared at him eagerly. "Can we kiss?" James explained patiently. "Your breath smells of alcohol. I'm afraid it might trigger my condition." After hearing his explanation, I still didn't give up. I took out a water cup from my bag and rinsed my mouth. "Ah, it's clean now." I opened my mouth to show James. He sighed, completely out of patience, then turned his head and gave a perfunctory kiss. The goal was achieved. I finally settled down and closed my eyes. The atmosphere was unusually quiet and harmonious. "Why do you want to kiss me?" James' voice was tense, yet there seemed to be a hint of anticipation. I thought for a moment with my not fully functioning brain. "Your mouth smells nice and tastes sweet." Maybe it was the taste of fruit wine? It was so sweet it reached my heart. James didn't seem satisfied with this answer and asked again. "What if someone else's mouth also has fruit wine on it?" My mind was in a daze, and I only heard the words mouth and fruit wine. That sweet taste was memorable. Following my memory, I pursed my lips and giggled stupidly. Okay. Suddenly, my butt hurt. I looked up in confusion. I was thrown into the greenbelt. Although there was soil to cushion, I still had a solid fall. My vision was blurry, and I could only see James walking forward alone, clearly showing he didn't care about me. I struggled for ages but couldn't get up, then cried out plaintively, "James, wait up for me." Then I tilted my head and fell asleep. James was on top of me, kissing me, his hands roaming all over without restraint. His voice was husky, filled with desire. "Really want to check?" I woke up with a start, realizing it had all been a dream. It seemed like the lingering feeling from the dream still clung to me, mixed with the sourness of a hangover. I stretched, and then a sharp pain shot through my back. I was completely stunned. I took a closer look. My clothes had been changed, and I'd been given a bath too. But my memory only went as far as chatting with my childhood friend, and then it was a complete blank. Who brought me back last night? I turned on my phone and saw messages from my childhood friend. "Your roommate came to pick you up, so I left first. Make sure to apologize to him properly. He's such a nice guy." Could it be that something happened between us last night? Nah, that can't be. I noticed the dorm curtains were closed. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, half pulled down my pants to see what was going on with my back. After struggling to get into a position where I could see, it looked like there was a fading handprint and a big bruise too. Suddenly, the dorm door was pushed open. Holy shit! I quickly jumped back into bed, but I pressed on the wound, and the pain made me grimace. I stared warily towards the door. Thank goodness it's James. James stares at me, his expression unreadable. "What are you doing?" I ask tentatively. "James, my butt hurts." "You?" James frowns. "Have you forgotten everything?" "Huh." I'm confused. James presses his lips together, a hint of mockery in his voice. "I'm gay. What else could I do to you? You insisted on kissing me last night and said it was normal for straight guys to kiss. I've known since I was a kid that I can't handle alcohol well. I never thought it was this bad." I ruffled my hair in annoyance and said, "Sorry, James." James is taken aback, a bit flustered. "You're not mad at me?" "No, I'm not. Why would I be mad at him? It's obvious that I was the one who seduced him. He's gay and I still provoked him like that. How could he possibly resist? Anyway, I definitely couldn't if I were him." James keeps staring at me until I feel uncomfortable. Then he says in a low voice, "Without Oliver, you fell last night." I let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. His eyes were gloomy as he mumbled, "You make people want to push their luck." He was by the bedside, very close. The morning's bit of lascivious thought was stirred up again, and the scene in the dream overlapped with reality. I drew my legs in, licked my lips, and said, as if possessed, "Can I kiss you then?" As soon as I said it, I came to my senses and was shocked by myself, getting goosebumps all over. What the hell was I doing? Do straight guys have feelings for other men? Meeting James' indescribable gaze, I stammered an explanation. "I just wanted to cure you. I didn't have any other intentions." I didn't even believe this excuse myself. I gave up and covered myself with the quilt. The dorm fell silent, and James went out. The senior in the group asked me out for a meal. I agreed. Seeing how gloomy I was, the senior started to comfort me again. "Are you still worrying about your roommate?" "Yeah." "Is he still mad at you?" "No." I poked at the pasta, sighed and said, "But it still feels weird. We're not as close as we used to be. Honestly, I don't even know why he was mad before." The senior looked up, as if she saw someone, and her eyes curved into a smile. "I'm really curious. What's your relationship with James exactly?" "What's the relationship?" "Friends." For some reason, I didn't sound very confident even to myself. Suddenly, someone grabbed my arm and yanked me up. James had somehow appeared behind me, looking rather menacing. "Sorry, senior. My roommate and I have something urgent to discuss," he said with a fake smile, then pulled me outside. "What the hell are you doing, James?" "What's up?" Stumbling all the way to the dorm, James pushed me onto the bed. There was a storm brewing in his eyes. Having a good chat with the senior? He didn't seem to want to hear my answer. Before I knew it, he kissed me. I widened my eyes, feeling the familiar touch, cool and soft. James didn't stop until he was out of breath, then buried his face in my neck, breathing heavily. His breath hit the back of my ear, and I shivered. "James, you said you weren't having an episode. So why?" James looked up, his eyes red. I kissed you because I felt like it. His mood was off. The familiar rash started to spread again. I patted his back soothingly. I was just chatting with the senior about you. She's quite curious about us. I took out my phone and showed him the messages in the group. After flipping through a few pages, he calmed down a lot. I quickly got up and told him to lie down. I'll wipe you with a towel. When I came out of the bathroom with a wrung-out towel, I happened to pass by James' desk. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a piece of white paper on his desk with 5 big black characters on it. Residence withdrawal application. You're going to withdraw from the dorm? You're leaving? Then I won't be able to see you anymore. So what if I am? James' expression was extremely indifferent, tinged with fatigue. A wave of panic welled up in my heart, and I grabbed the corner of his clothes. James, I was wrong. I shouldn't have called you a fag. I shouldn't have guessed about your relationship with that guy at the gym. There was no response. James, if you leave, who's gonna treat your illness? There will always be someone, James said softly. I stood there stunned. The thought of someone else hugging and kissing James made my heart feel like a sponge soaked in water. Heavy. Can you not leave? William, who are you asking me as? James looked down at me. A good roommate, a good classmate, a good buddy. The words came out one by one, but James showed no reaction. James, do you like me? Can we be together? I said tentatively. This was my only way out. Is this how you straight guys coax people? James looked at me indifferently. I wasn't sure if I was straight anymore. Over the past few months, I'd gotten used to being close to him, and even looked forward to it. It was only him, and it could only be him. James, I don't know, but I think I'm into you. Oliver, you might be confusing love with friendship. I'm sure, James. I even had a dream about you the other day. What about dreaming about me? James asked curiously. I licked my lips and glanced suggestively at his. He frowned slightly, as if not understanding what I meant. Taking a deep breath, I pulled him closer, kissed him, and avoided his eyes. Like this, it's just a kiss. Isn't it normal? Such a familiar line. Didn't I say that? James slowly leaned down, his voice dry. This is how we gays kiss. Bang! A heavy object crashed to the ground. James finally let go of me. Before I could catch my breath, I met Henry's eyes at the door, and we stared at each other in disbelief. This scene seemed so familiar. Last time, I caught them. This time, he caught us. Hi! Henry looked embarrassed and tiptoed into the dormitory under our gaze. I'm here to grab something. I watched helplessly as he took the dormitory withdrawal form. So it's you who's going to move out? Henry nodded. Yeah, Matthew and I are going to live off campus next semester. We'll invite you guys for a meal in a few days. I'm off. You guys carry on. The dorm fell silent again. James, you tricked me. I stared at him with wide eyes and accused. Who said I haven't thought about it? James curled his lips. So, are we together now? What do you think? James had a dangerous look. It seemed like if I gave a negative answer, I'd be in big trouble. Of course we are. I grinned. So, does this mean I'm a straight guy who's slightly bent now? I couldn't help but look at his lips and swallowed, suddenly feeling a bit thirsty. Oliver, I think I'm having another episode. James's voice was seductive, his eyes glinting. Well, I'll treat you again then. I couldn't wait to kiss him again. Henry and Matthew invited us to dinner. Thinking that we'd soon not see each other, I announced generously, I hereby solemnly announce that James and I are together. Henry looked puzzled. Weren't you two together ages ago? Huh? You used to sleep together all the time. And also, damn it, James smiled softly and picked up some food for me. Henry, however, showed an apologetic look. Sorry, we've been used to sleeping together since we were kids. If we disturbed you before, we're really sorry. I waved my hand. It's okay. I understand. I really hated their behavior before, but now that I think about it, in Henry's eyes, James and I are also two gays who are always rolling together every day, and they're both moving out. What does that mean? The dorm will be a little world for James and me from now on. We can do whatever we want. I was overjoyed inside, but said politely, with the relationship in our dorm, there's actually no need to move out. We all understand each other. It's not convenient, Matthew said coldly. What's not convenient? I blurted out. Henry's face suddenly turned red and he started coughing. I suddenly got it. Is this something that can be said? I glanced at James subtly. He looked calm and just kept picking up food. That night in the dorm, the lights were dim. James casually hugged me, our skin touching. Thinking of what Henry said during the day, I rubbed against him suggestively and cleared my throat softly. James, wanna? He slowly opened his eyes and said, "Are you ready?" "Of course. I've watched tons of those videos." I nodded confidently. "You sure?" "Absolutely." James ruffled my hair and replied hoarsely, "Okay." After that, I lay face down on the bed. James was giving me a massage, a smile still on his lips. "Oliver, didn't you say you were straight?" I shot him a glare, my ears turning red. "Who said I'm straight? I'm definitely not." We became a couple. Looks like our dorm 404 has really become a gay dorm.